It's now time to look at the headlines on the front pages of Nigerian newspapers. I have with me here The Nation. The big story here is the CDS, Chief of Army Staff, military will not give in to anti-democratic calls. Civil rule is best for Nigeria, says EU. Army goes into massive food production. That's the big story here today. And on the elections, INEC to conduct mock accreditation. APC calls on security men to prevent rigging. 65 billion naira will solve a water crisis, says Igudalu. Benin Group urges electorate to vote wisely on September 12th. Misinformation erodes trust between government people, says Minister. Another story here says Nigeria gets 10,000 Mpox vaccine doses. WHO needs $87.4 million. A report here says what President Tinubu's China trip means for Nigeria by the presidency. CBN to issue 2.2 billion naira treasury bills in the fourth quarter. Christian Association of Nigeria, Sultan, decry resurgence of kidnappings. Killings. On the bottom strip, the bio-loyalist shop for alternative platform to contest. That's on the Rivers Council poll. Some stories on the front page of The Nation. To the Salient Times, no timeline yet for NSCIA report implementation, says Bajabiamila. Angry youth attack rep in Bauchi, accuse lawmaker of poor representation. Save Nigeria from bloodshed. Christian Association of Nigeria, Sultan, urged the federal government. Another story here says military will not heed call to overthrow Tinubu's government. That's according to Army Chief Lagbaja. Brain drain reduces national hospital staff to 2,500. CBN to sell 2.2 trillion naira treasury bills in the fourth quarter of 2024. We did not advise Nigerians not to eat bread. NAFDAC is reacting. Interesting. Alleged disrespect. Apologize to Oba of Benin. Group tells the governor, Godwin Obaseki. Some stories on the front page of the Salient Times to Nigerian Tribune. End killings, banditry. Christian Association Sultan urged the federal government. Says recent bloodshed alarming. ICPC inaugurates anti-corruption unit in FIRS. 45 years after, ex-rep members refunds federal government student loan of 1,200 with 3.1 million naira. Interesting. Rivers Police launched manhunt for kidnappers of a director. State gear up for emerging threat as U.S. donates 10,000 doses of vaccine. 13 arrested over attack on Oyo's commissioner's convoy. Lepers in Lagos resort to drinking contaminated water. Health experts warn of a public health crisis. Another story here says Ogun Border community seeks the federal government intervention over violent attacks. LP moves to sanction Governor Oti, set up disciplinary committee. Some stories on the front page of Nigeria Tribune. To this Nigeria and alarming killings, kidnapping, banditry. Nigeria Interreligious Council tells the federal government urges security agencies to change strategy. Tinubu, China's president, to meet in Beijing. Floods kill 49, displaced 4,344 in the northeast, according to Neymar. Zaria residents seek help after cemetery desecration over village. Local airfares surged by 25% in July, says the National Bureau of Statistics. Brain drain reduces national hospital staff to 2,500. IMF hinges Nigeria's 3.1% economic growth outlook on stronger reforms. Some stories on the front page of this Nigeria to the New Telegraph. Christian Association, once again, Sultan, seek end to bloodshed, abductions in Nigeria, condemn farmers' killings in Niger, abduction of 150 people in Sokoto, fret over exponential rise and level of insecurity, urge Nigerians to be cautious, vigilant, report suspicious activities. A report here says 31.8 million Nigerians suffering from acute food insecurity. 38 years after, a Afenifere leader repairs student loan with over 3 million. Federal government seeks balanced report on Nigeria by international media. 500 workers dump national hospital for foreign jobs. 32 physicians in captivity as resident doctors demand government action. Nigerians becoming more optimistic, according to the CBN. Some stories on the front page of the New Telegraph. To the Daily Times, Kaduna residents flee to urban centers as abduction rise in hinterlands. IGP urges citizens' collaboration. Police confirms arrest of 97 Shiites following killings of officers in Abuja. ICT contributes 19.78% to Nigeria's second quarter 2024 GDP, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. 14.6% of Nigerians hooked on drugs. That's a report according to the NDLEA. INEC to conduct mock accreditation of voters September 10th. That's for the Edo gubernatorial election. NAFDAC clears misconception about use of saccharin in bread production. Some stories on the front page of the Daily Times. To the Daily News Hub. Organizers of the August protest issue federal government 17-point demands set for October protests. Want detained protesters Nnamdi Kanu released. Demand on freezing of bank accounts. Seek scrapping of 1999 Constitution. Restructuring. Save us from incessant violence, kidnappings, killings by killer headsmen. Iwoiketu people cry out, urge the federal government, international community to promptly intervene. Dismiss viral video, deny head of town's Regency Council. DPO shielding Fulani settles. Why President Tinubu replaced the DSS NIA DGs? That's according to, a source in the presidency. Fresh crisis hits the Labour Party as Governor Oti calls NEC meeting. We will defend democracy, Army assures Nigeria. 80% of Nigeria's workforce will be jobless without MSME, says the Vice President. Shatima apologized to Benin monarch within 7 days. Group gives Obaseki ultimatum. Anambra government shuts school over bullying. Some stories on the front page of the Daily News Up. To the first news, October showdown with the federal government looms.
Yeah.
The August protest movement dropped 17-point ultimatum. Organizers demand release of detained protesters Nnamdi Kanu, scrapping of 1999 Constitution, minimum wage increase to 250,000 naira, among others. Christian Association of Nigeria Sultan to federal government and the certain spate of killings, banditry in Nigeria. Governor Diri charges commissioners on teamwork, unveils a short prosperity agenda for second term. Some stories on the front page of the first news. And to the blueprint, without MSME, 80% of Nigerians will be jobless. Shatima says, planned Tinubu's China trip to attract 3 trillion naira investment. That's according to the presidency. IMF hinges 3.1% economic growth on reforms. Some stories on the front page of the blueprint. Ibrahim.
Right, first with me here is the Nigerian News Direct. Federal government must implement stronger reforms to record economic growth, IMF. Also, reps to pass legislation on electricity theft. USAID donates 10,000 vaccine doses to Nigeria to tackle Mpox. Next is the Punch newspaper. Flights of fancy. Governors slammed for wasting 160 billion naira on on viable airports. Nasarawa, Yobe, others beg federal government to take over airports shunned by airlines. On the bottom strip, we have Lagos conduct red line rail test run today, and also AMCON set to sell Ibadan Disco. IG vows to the rescue 2,149 kidnapped victims. Above the masthead, Abure OT on collision course over Labour Party NWC tenure. Platform Times is next. Federal government states mobilize 100 billion naira to close Nigeria's widening metering gap. Federal government actively working on NSCIA report implementation. Bajabi Amila. Labour Party crisis deepens as Abure Okafor engage in fresh altercation. The military will not heed call to overthrow Tinubu's government. That's according to Army Chief Lagbaja. Don't accept proceeds of crime as payment from clients, EFCC advises lawyers. Above the nameplate, local government polls, Ogun, Assembly invites OGZEC, over 250,000 naira administrative fee, and land dispute, 9-year-old dies as man sets neighbor's house on fire in Adamawa, and Navy hands over 72 bags of cannabis, first suspect to NDLEA. Lawyer kills orphan in a Boeing. Next is Daily Trust. Mpox spreads to 19 states, cases now 40. Lagos raises the alarm over new variant from African nations. Federal government intensifies surveillance. US donates 10,000 vaccine doses to Nigeria. The Labour Party in fresh crisis as OT summons emergency neck meeting. NFF confirms German Labadia as Super Eagles coach. Federal government yet to pay us promised wage award. Pensioners cry out. Now, herders, farmers clash, claims 5 lives in Niger. No time yet for NSCIA report implementation. That's according to federal government. Next is Leadership newspaper. Diabetes patients panic as drug prices rise by 800%. Insulin rises to 26,000 naira from 3,000 naira. Glucometer, 30,000 naira from 6,000 naira. I spend 200,000 naira monthly to manage diabetes. So you can see the infographics of different something related to diabetes. Now, PIA host communities demand increase of 3% funding allocation. End killings, kidnapping, banditry now. Sultan urged Tinubu. Alleged terrorism financing. Police quiz Ajaero today. Not strike. Consultants, nurses overwhelmed and patients stranded. Next, Daily Independent is next. Nigeria moves to avoid international economic penalties. Restrictive measures. Vows to exit terrorist financing countries. The list by May 2025. Says country has 9 months left to exit grey list deadline. Mpox. Lagos on high alert against importation of aggressive variants. Tinubu to visit China over rail project. Other MOU deals. 2 years after commissioning, Ekiti 20 billion naira airport yet to take off. Stakeholders worry over 90% airports are not self-sustaining. On the bottom strip, you can't dissolve Benue local government's ESCOs. Ganduje-led NWC warns committee. Next is the Guardian newspaper. $48 per barrel production cost drowns 60% of Nigeria's oil earnings. 900 days on. CDHR tasks Sanwo-Olu on justice for late Bamishe. Marginalization, good governance, or additional 18 states. Food insecurity, federal government banks on dry season farming as flood devastates northeast. Residents of Rivers community flee over fresh oil spill. That's about it for the Guardian newspaper. Next is Business Day newspaper. ENI Oando speedy approval questions lingering divestments. Federal government rising fiscal deficit exposes squandermania governance. Rufai Bichi eased out over presidential jet seizure. Poor intel. Tinubu appoints Akinde Uzokpala to BOI board. Next is Nature News newspaper. NYSC kickstarts tree planting to tackle desertification. Flood claims 49 lives in Jigawa, Adamawa, Taraba. That's according to NEMA. UN scribe tasks Pacific Island nations on sustainable environment. Delta communities accuse NPSC, NNPC, JV of negligence after oil spill. CAMIC advocates mass action on open defecation in Nigeria. Agric experts urges backyard farming for Lagos residents. And training workshop on biosafety communications held in Abuja. Last but not least is the Nation Sport Alive. Ekong, Osime, Aina, Simon, return. Awoniyi, Ndatu, Olorunleke dropped. Obasoje in. Camp opens in Uyo Monday. And then Kane receives European Golden Shoe in Munich. Man United, Chelsea, hold Sterling, Sancho, swap talks. Ronaldo to receive special award from UEFA. Liverpool eyeing Chiesa and ahead $42 million deal. Ugarte arrives from United for medicals. Then we also have Arsenal confirm Merino deal from Real Sociedad. NFF appoints Bruno Labbadia as 37th head coach of Super Eagles. Zuma set for Al Oroba Medical. The man behind Bruno Labbadia, you can read that up on the Nation Sport Live. That's about it for the newspapers up for review. Lambe.
Interesting, Ibrahim. Well, there are major stories on the front pages of the newspaper today that may interest a lot of persons. But I think first on that list for me will be the October showdown with the federal government. It seems some persons are misunderstanding the meaning of a protest. In most cases, I believe that the use of dialogue should have been exhausted before you have, to register, your concerns once again, especially when you look at the effect that this had, not just in August, but even in the past years. And, some of these demands, sometimes some persons will say, are quite unrealistic. We have, or the federal government has to an extent, addressed some of these concerns, which include the minimum wage. And then the scrapping of the Constitution. We've always had, legal practitioners come here to talk to us about the fact that we may not actually need to, change the Constitution or even amend the Constitution, but we have an issue of implementation. Perhaps when the change begins with you as a Nigerian, then the Constitution will work. Some persons were referring to the U.S. Constitution that it's not really about being a large book, but ensure that you adhere to what is in there. And you see that even the judiciary, every other sector in the society is basically a reflection of the larger society itself. Right,
that's right. So just like you said, we really seem not to understand the aftermath or after effect of staging protest. Fine, let's state for a fact that it is within the right of Nigerians to protest, whenever they feel that they are not satisfied with side effects.
Of course.
But they also need to think of the consequences, the ripple effect. We saw what happened in Kano, we saw what happened in Kaduna, we saw what happened in different northern states, to the chagrin of a lot of people. So we do not want a repeat of that. We do not want a repeat of what happened during the NSAS, and we do not want a repeat of people going, looting, and vandalizing infrastructure that are actually meant for us. So in all of these, we should also be reasonable, be rational when it comes to making our demands. These demands, looking at the short term and the long term, and then also the smart goals of this demand. Are they sustainable? Are they measurable? Are they attainable, realistic, or time-bound? So we also need to understand that this government is very new. Don't let me use the word very new, because others will say, well, it's an APC to APC transition, but then it's a Tinubu-led administration, and then we just need to place this thing vis-a-vis what we're seeing, what he said he would do, and how long will it take for it to materialize. Something that is bad for several years, we don't expect it to be, to be done pronto, just in the twinkle of an eye. And we also need to, just like you said, we also need to look directly into ourselves. How are we contributing to the betterment, to the benefit of this country? What exactly are we doing to make Nigeria better? Because it's not about one man. We're not also protesting towards our governors. We're not looking at local government. We are only looking at the president The president can't do it alone without our own help or without the state governors holding themselves to task or holding them to task and being responsible to the citizens that they're presiding over.
You know, I'm also looking at it from a security angle. Of course, we'll be having the security experts very soon. But when you look at what happened, we're still in August. What happened a few weeks back, you know, some persons actually tried to take advantage of, you know, those protesters that had really good concerns about, you know, the government, taking advantage of it, risking the sovereignty. We probably need to also continue to raise awareness, because when you go on social media, you still see some persons saying they do not really see the risk in, you know, waving the flag of another country. They still do not see the risk in that. And so this protest especially, I would advise, if possible, they should be very direct with their demands.
And they should have more engagement.
You want to end and more engagement, and not, you know, going about. The Constitution, the 1999 Constitution, well, has been amended repeatedly. And legal practitioners themselves say it's not really about that. We need to improve who we are as a people, as a nation. You know, when you look at it to an extent, the level of patriotism that we have in Nigeria, it's a bit low. And that's why you see this reflecting in every area or every sector, and not just, you know, within, you know, among the citizens themselves. The minimum wage also is another conversation that we'll be having next time.